Al Topich from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and you are?
I'm Vera Drew. I'm the writer, director, star, and I did some of the VFX as well on the People's Joker.
Gotham City is nothing but neon biker gangs, leather freaks, and cross-dressers. Is that what you want? Come home!
Could you give us a brief synopsis of the People's Joker?
For sure, yeah. The People's Joker is a queer coming-of-age comic book parody about an unfunny transsexual clown named Joker who moves to Gotham City with dreams of being a comedian, and along the way she forms an illegal comedy theater and finds herself and finds love, and I don't want to spoil the movie, but she kills Batman.
So what is your relationship with comic books in general? Did you grow up reading them?
Yeah, I love comics. I started reading them. I don't even remember when I started reading them. Probably before I was able to form memories. Was just kind of a comic book fan forever, and it actually ended up being a scene that we sort of reenacted in the People's Joker. But Batman Forever was like a super important film to me as a young person, deeply closeted, growing up in the Midwest, and it's just the most expensive gay art film ever made is Batman Forever. But both of those Schumacher Batman movies are just like beautiful, like queer pop operas, and it was watching Batman Forever. I don't think this was like the singular moment I realized I was trans. Like, I think it was like one of many along the way. But just seeing Nicole Kidman in that movie, kind of, I don't know, like I felt represented as like a 6-year-old quote unquote boy. I think most 6-year-old boys watched it and like it was like a sexual awakening for them. But for me, it was really like a gender thing. And yeah, comics have just kind of always kind of been that for me. Like I feel like they really are like our modern myths, and have helped me understand my identity and my place in society, I guess.
Yeah, there's lots of references to the Joel Schumacher Batmans in your movie, especially like mentioning the bat nipples on the suits.
Oh yeah, we got to bring back the bat nipples.
So was Schumacher kind of like a main inspiration?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's weird because like I kind of found that out along the way. Like I always knew that I loved those movies, and you know, he's one of my favorite directors. Like I really think he should be in the same conversation as like people like Scorsese and De Palma and stuff, just because of like how stylish his films are, and he's got such like a wide variety of movies. So I was really thinking a lot about his films, you know, obviously the Batman movies, but also The Incredible Shrinking Woman with Lily Tomlin and Charles Grodin was a movie that I specifically made our DP watch just because like of how colorful it is. Like Joel Schumacher like invented new colors for that movie. It's so just beautiful. And yeah, my DP watched it and he was like, okay, so you just like want it to be vibrant. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of colors, lots of strange angles in your movie, lots of, stylistically, it's kind of almost all over the place. You have like animated scenes, you have some crudely rendered 3D images as well, with like the Poison Ivy. So what you worked with lots of like collaborators for this movie, right? So how did you find these collaborators?
It's one of the only good things that's ever come out of Twitter, I think, is I put a call out just to anybody that wanted to help me make it, and this was like in April 2020, so you know, a lot of DIY artists and freaks didn't really exactly have jobs, so it was kind of just like a perfect timing thing, because like I woke up that next day just to a bunch of people that really wanted to not only like make a queer Batman parody with me, but like just see it. Like I think that was like the thing, is just people were like, oh, this is like a take that I didn't know that I wanted, like a trans Joker movie, like that sounds sick. So yeah, and like it was a lot of different you know, animators, like pretty much every single animation style, you know, stop motion, 2D, hand drawn.
You had puppets at the end. So.
Oh yeah, I love puppets. Like there's not enough puppets in movies. I'm hoping to incorporate some puppets in my next film. Yeah, so I kind of always knew it would have this sort of like like in that moment, it really had this like, okay, this is going to be like an eclectic sort of just like collage of all these different styles. And there was something about that just felt very like inherently like queer to me too, like just getting a lot of different aesthetics and perspectives together. When you're watching the movie, you'd feel like the community behind it that made it. At least that's, what like critics who are smarter than me have said and stuff.
So I mean, like how obvious was it for you to come up with like the aesthetics of like the clowns and the makeup? Because I know I watched an interview with you from a couple months ago where you mentioned like even professional wrestling played some sort of influence.
Yeah, I mean, because legally I had to really put my own spin on all these characters. So we had character designers for all of them, and specifically for like the main cast, like Joker the Harlequin, who's our like trans Joker in the movie, who I play, was definitely influenced by wrestling, like 90s WWE, back when it was WWF, before the World Wildlife Foundation got a stick up its butt. I don't want to take shots, actually. You can keep that in, but I just think they shouldn't have been so precious about their name. Anyway, and then even for like Penguin in the movie, like we were really looking at like sort of like Judd Apatow characters and stuff, and I basically just dressed him kind of how like Kevin Smith dresses now, and that was very intentional. And hopefully someday Kevin sees the movie and comments on it.
Yeah, I also like see like shades of like David Lynch and maybe John Waters a little bit in there.
Oh, those are like my two spooky grandpas. I love David Lynch so much. I saw Mulholland Drive when I was way too young, and it really expanded my mind. I so rarely would ever call him like my favorite director. He's just like my favorite artist of all time, and how he's able to juggle a lot of different tones. And I think I really watch a lot of his movies as like genre movies, even though like I don't think he would consider them genre movies. But like, something like Eraserhead is just basically like a horror film about parenthood. And then Waters, absolutely. I could not have made The People's Joker specifically without Desperate Living. I think that's like probably my favorite Waters movie, just because I think it's the one that like feels the most like a fairy tale to me. And I was familiar with his work prior to seeing it, but I hadn't seen Desperate Living until maybe like my mid-20s or something. And it was crazy watching it because like all the queer people in it are dressed in a way that like the movie's suggesting like, oh, they're so weird, but they just all looked like my friends. Like they just looked like, people who live in like Bushwick and stuff. So like all the style clash clothes and stuff. Like I think from like a representation standpoint, it was really just refreshing for me to watch a movie at that point early in my like queer journey, of seeing a movie where like the queer characters aren't really good people. They're imperfect. Like to me, that's a lot more interesting. Is specifically from like a queer representation standpoint, is seeing characters that have room to grow or just are outright horrible people. Yeah,
that reminds me. Like I showed Hedwig and the Angry Inch in my film class last year. So.
Oh yeah, no, that was another big influence on the movie. I really thought of The People's Joker kind of like a one-woman show in that way too, and that was a film that was so interesting because when I saw it the first time, it ended and I was so sad that Hedwig, like, when she like rips off all of her clothes and is just basically like kind of detransitions, I was like, ah. And it was this moment where I was like, why am I sad? Oh, I'm just trans. And this is a character who isn't trans. This is like another thing. And I just think the way that movie like explores identity and pop culture, the sort of glam rock thing. And, she's such a bad person, to all the people around her that like care for her. So there's really this journey she has to go on to like not only love herself, but learn how to like love and support the people around her that have been supporting her. And yeah, I love the music. so much.
Yeah, her character's a little bit toxic.
Oh yeah, no, just you don't get any more toxic. Like, and yeah, I think that was just another. I love John Cameron Mitchell so much. Yeah.
It's kind of speaking like how's the response been from like the trans community to your movie?
Oh gosh, like overwhelming. I mean, it's generally speaking like just unanimous praise, and which is interesting experience for me. Because I was raised Catholic, so I don't really do well with praise. I mean, I want attention too, but like, you know, at the same time, I'm deeply uncomfortable with it. But, you know, I thought I was making a movie just for me and my friends, and, you know, kind of this sort of bridge to, I mean, it's corny, but like my inner child. Like, I was really trying to make a movie for like, you know, 13-year-old me, like the kind of movie I would have thought was funny. And, you know, like I kept thinking about it like, oh, this is like it's a movie that like, you know, watch this before my parents come home, you know, from work, or like, you know, after everybody's going to bed. It's like rude, but like still, you know, pretty safe enough. But yeah, like you know, getting the chance to like watch it with audiences, especially like after like the whole journey it's sort of had, like it's kind of a crazy experience seeing how much the story means to people. And, you know, I've seen people with People's Joker tattoos. Like, I know somebody that changed her last name to Harleen partially because of the film. And that's yeah, there's nothing more you couldn't want anything more as like from your first film that you made. And I really think I attribute that just to the specificity of the story. Like, it's not talking about the trans experience metaphorically at all. It really is just, I mean, she dives into a vat of estrogen. You don't get any more like on the nose about like what some of our transition journeys look like. And I think that specificity, which I thought was kind of just for me, really appeals to a lot of people. And it's been very validating as an artist, just because I feel like it's, you know, filmmakers, especially the ones that go to film school, we're kind of told like, don't tell true stories, don't tell, you know, don't take out huge loans to do your movie. And I did both of those things. And now we're having this conversation. So
I guess, yeah, I'm kind of like looking at like the genre that it is. Like, it's legally it's a parody of comic book movies.
Yeah.
But it also seems to be like a satire on like the comedic world as well, like stand-up comedy. So what do you have against Saturday Night Live and Lorne Michaels?
Well, it's basically a part of our military-industrial complex. They, you know, have decided U.S. elections. You know, I don't think we would have had Bush for 2 terms if Will Ferrell wasn't so good at portraying him. And like, you know, and conversely, like, I think Daryl Hammond's Al Gore was like rad. He really captured how boring Al Gore was, and I think just the American zeitgeist was like, yeah, I don't really want to like listen to this like dry guy talk about the environment for 8 years. So there's that aspect to it. You know, I got to be careful about what I say here, but people can Google some of the articles that have been written just about, you know, some of the abusers that, you know, have been really shielded by that as an organization, and people never talk about it. I mean, we're having this conversation on a day where a trailer dropped for a movie that is portraying Lorne Michaels as like an underdog, which fair when, you know, he was up against a lot back in the 70s when he started making that movie, but now he's, you know, friends with people like Donald Trump and Shane Gillis, and I wanted to make him the primary villain in the People's Joker and also give him no butt. He doesn't have a butt in our movie. Can I say butt?
Sure.
Okay.
Cool. But is fine. So which era of like Saturday Night Live do you like resonate the most with? Like, did you ever enjoy?
Oh yeah, I should qualify it with like, you know, I started doing comedy super young. Like I was 13, which you should never let your children do comedy. There's way worse things they could get into, but like comedy will also lead to those things. They did for me. But yeah, I started doing sketch and improv when I was growing up in the suburbs of Chicago. Like I would take the train to the city every day and, you know, do shows and stuff. And it was really this like pure space for me to explore identity and queerness and all this stuff, like in drag and stuff too. Like where I didn't really have that, you know, in the 90s and early 2000s growing up in, you know, the suburbs. You know, when you I think anybody who starts in comedy, like no matter how young they are, like you kind of in the back of your head, like I want to be on SNL. Like I definitely wanted to be on SNL, and like I grew up in that era of, Will Ferrell and stuff, but I was always really obsessed with like the early '90s, like Adam Sandler. I'm obsessed with Adam Sandler still, and Chris Farley, and David Spade. Just like how bitchy he is. It's just like, and still like I love his podcast with Dana Carvey. It's just like, it's like listening to a couple old Queens gossip. I love it. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing too with the film, and that I really tried to have is like a little bit of nuance. I think I didn't arrive at these sort of political opinions on SNL until later in life, and sort of that like idealism of like what comedy could or should be as like an art form, like those kind of dissolve away, and then you just see like, okay, it's used to uphold patriarchy and capitalism, and some of its stars getting dates with like 15-year-olds. So it's to me, it's like a perfect backdrop too, just for like a lot of the stuff that's like happening politically in America as we sort of speak.
What you mentioned, like kind of you getting into sketch comedy. Early on in your film career, you were an editor for things like Tim and Eric and Comedy Bang Bang. So how did your film career kind of get started?
I don't know. I mean, I wanted to be a filmmaker. My earliest memories are wanting to be a director because of Back to the Future. I have a flux capacitor tattoo, cool. And it was I got that when I was 6. No, I was like 6 years old, and I was just I don't think I really fully understood what a director was, but I knew that like, oh, it's like somebody who can kind of world build and create. It's like basically I could just get to play with toys forever. But the pathway to directing, like, I mean, I think a lot of filmmakers starting out now, like, don't realize, like, how different it was, like, even just, like, 20, 30 years ago. There were film schools, which is expensive and honestly kind of pointless, although I loved going to DePaul for mine. That was where I went in Chicago, and it was one of the first programs to really like lean into the digital stuff, and it was like really early on, like when people were still like digital's not going to replace film, but I wanted to go there because they were like, no, it clearly is, and it's going to like kind of democratize filmmaking in a way, and I think you could argue that it kind of did, but even in film school, like I didn't really know what kind of stories I wanted to tell or anything like that. Like I just knew I wanted to work in film. So when I moved to LA, I got an internship at Tim and Eric's production company, Absolutely Productions, and I just called them. Like I just was like, hey, do you guys need an intern? Like I smoke pot in my dorm and watch your stuff with my friends, and I'd love to work for you. And they were like, sure. And I was not fit to work anywhere else as far as I'm concerned. Like I really was not, I was a not quite ready for primetime player. And I came in there right at the perfect time. Like my first job was I was an intern on season 1 of the Eric Andre show, and in those days, the interns, like one day I'd be like operating a camera or moving a light, and then the next like waking up Hannibal Buress in his dressing room so that he could go down to set and fall asleep on camera. And so really like threw me in immediately, and from there I just kind of realized like, okay, like a lot of the directors that work at this company started out as editors, and I had been editing forever. Like the first editing software I used was Lego Movie Maker, and their editing software was basically the same interface as I think Pinnacle Studio or Sony Vegas or something. So I learned nonlinear editing very, very young, and was like, okay, I could do this. Like I'll really focus on post-production and get to work with directors and sort of learn the craft from the inside out. Like I really do think editing is an extension of both writing and directing in that way. And I think the directors who, get their start in there or have like really close relationships with their editors, like Scorsese or Tarantino or stuff, like there's a reason they're like really good at what they do, because they're not wasting time on set. They're shooting for the edit. And I think just even for all the like young filmmakers starting out, like that's a very valuable thing to know and understand, especially if you're working for somebody else. Like, if you shoot it very specifically, according to, you know, the edit that you're trying to put together, they really can't control too much of post-production. So yeah, I mean, it was many years of doing that. And, you know, I was just talking about it, I think yesterday with somebody, like, that for a long time, because I did that for like 10 years. I was in post-production and sort of alternative comedy space for a really long time. And really kind of like, how do I break into directing? And like, I tried to like get into episodic TV directing. You know, I was able to get some creative producing jobs, a few directing jobs on some AdultSwim.com things that were really fun and experimental. But like, I quickly realized like nobody's gonna give me like the green light to like be a director. And I think, you know, when the idea for this project kind of took shape, it was just like, okay, this is the only green light I'll ever get. Like, the world is shutting down. I have this idea for this movie about a drag queen who's physically addicted to irony. Let's make it a Joker parody, and let's just hang out with my friends. And I cashed in every favor I could. You know, I put Tim Heidecker in it. I put Bob Odenkirk in it, Scott Aukerman, Elliot Glazer, all these people that I had worked with over the years that Maria Bamford, like I really looked up to these people because they were also, you know, coming to comedy from this sort of like punk sensibility. Like I think all those people I mentioned, the type of work they do, only they could do it. And like, I think that was what took me so long to sort of finally get, you know, into the director's chair, was I needed to really like find my voice, figure out what story I wanted to tell, and accept the fact that, okay, like I'm going to be the first to do whatever this version of a film career I'm doing is.
Which there's one cameo that you didn't mention, and that's Robert Wuhl.
Oh, yes.
Which I'm probably one of the few Robert Wuhl fans in the world.
You'd be shocked at how beloved he is. It's been the coolest thing about like taking the movie out there is like, oh yeah, no, we all love Robert Wuhl.
Yeah, because he did Batman, and then he did that movie with Tommy Lee Jones, that Ty Cobb movie, and then he did Arliss for a couple of years, and then he just kind of disappeared. And then I saw him like halfway through your movie, he pops up in a literal cameo, and then like the post credits, like he like gives you encouragement and whatnot.
Yeah. So
how did you actually just get his cameo? And
I went on Cameo. It was during a pretty particularly emotionally low point in the project. I was up against my deadline for our premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival, and basically was just chain smoking all the time and being like, how the hell am I ever going to finish? This is an impossible movie to make, so it's an impossible movie to finish. And just kind of as like a joke for myself, I was like, I kind of want to see if I can get Robert Wuhl to be in the movie, and if I could just like see what he has to say about like, so I sent him this cameo request that's kind of pitching the idea of the movie and stuff. And what he sent back is what you see in the movie. I mean, he's basically like, I can't legally play Alexander Knox, his character from Batman in this, but hey, you know, like you do you, basically like you go girl. And it like, I cried when I got it because it was just so beautiful. And I don't know, like I've definitely evolved out of some of these punk tendencies. Like if I had done that now, I'd probably be like, well, he said he can't do it, so I'm not going to include it in the movie. But this was a few years ago at this point, and I was like, you know, this movie is like a reflection of my own reality, and I think this needs to be a part of the story itself. So I put it in there, and we screened it at a lot of festivals. And the second we started screening it, I was like, oh no, this is like a moment that is playing really well. Like especially the end credit scene when he's like coming back and he's like, why not a trans Joker movie? Like, I think that's great. People would cheer, like people would give him standing ovations. So it quickly settled in like, oh my God, like this has to be in the movie. So I went back to him and asked him, and you know, I think he felt a little betrayed, if I can be honest. But he was like, you know, I'll do it, you know, for a little bit more money than what you paid for that cameo, and we worked something out, and you know, I'm so glad he ended up wanting to be a part of the movie, because it's such a cool experience having somebody that is this kind of like figure that I grew up just seeing him as a character actor and all these different things, and him just being like cool with a trans director even. It's just like, cool, I'm glad you're like one of the good ones, like, you know. because there's just so many boomers that aren't.
Yeah. Oh, has he seen the movie yet? Do you know?
I think so. He's gotten a link, but I'm not sure. I hope someday our paths cross. I don't know why they would. We definitely roll in different circles. One of my favorite parts of the cameo video that I don't think people even really notice is that he's got a baseball game paused in the background. Like, he paused a baseball game on TiVo or whatever to, like, you know, go through his cameos, and it's just like this little detail that I'm just like, wow, we're different beasts, you and I, Mr. Wuhl. I hope I get to work with him too in you know, a more ethical way someday.
So his character is kind of a reference to the '89 Batman. You have Bob the Goon in there.
Yes.
So who is your Batman and who is your Joker? Like,
oh wow, like I think, well, I get a lot of crap for this, but Ben Affleck is probably my favorite Batman, just because he's kind of like the like the AA Batman a little bit. Like, he's a little like out of shape and like is just killing people. He's just like, it's a Batman that you really know has this whole story that you're not seeing. Like, it feels like a really fully lived in version of that character. Like, that's a Batman who lost one of his Robins, and is really juggling like a lot of different traumas. And to me, it reminds me most of the Batman comics that I loved growing up, like especially like the Frank Miller Batman. And then Joker, it's definitely Cesar Romero. Like, I feel like he's the most chaotic. Like, just the fact that he refused to shave his mustache, like, there's nothing more Joker-fied than that. And I don't know, like, to me, like, Joker should always kind of have like a little bit of a pirate thing going. Like, it should be kind of swashbuckling, because, like, I don't know. I think a fundamental aspect of Joker that's missing from most portrayals is how annoying he should be. He should kind of be grating. You know, like, this is a character that kind of is making jokes that only they think is funny. So, and what could be more annoying than, like, pirates? Like, think of your friend that's obsessed with pirates. Like, it's, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine it's like Cesar Romero, like on the surfboard.
Oh gosh, yeah. I love the whole '60s Batman too. Like, I would have loved to have thrown more references to it in the movie, and we get a few of the Dutch angles, and we sample some sound effects and stuff. But you know, the whole like legal parody side of it, like I couldn't just like throw in, you know, I couldn't throw in Ben Affleck's Batman. Yeah. You know, like, it had to really kind of draw back to my personal experience, and because the movie really is just an autobiography of my life and like coming up as an artist, but told using Batman characters. But that said, I was able to get like a version of Jared Leto's Joker in there, and that was for two reasons. One, you know, it's probably one of the most toxically masculine Jokers, and that's kind of what that character's processing. But also just the fact that Jared Leto played a trans woman in a movie, and I got to basically like get revenge by casting a trans man as a Jared Leto Joker. Like, legally, that helps me, which is just crazy. I learned so much about the law. You know, it's like every kid's dream to like make a movie that is like every lawyer's favorite movie. You know, but here we are.
So what is next for you? I know you have like the little teaser at the end of this movie.
Oh yeah, well there's a sequel to this that I'm technically not supposed to say I am ever gonna make it or whatever the hell, you know, David Zaslav wants. I gotta stop saying stuff like that. I hope to revisit these characters someday. But I think it'll be a while. Like, I really used this film as a vehicle to sort of process like the first 28 years of my life. So I think, you know, when I dive back into this sandbox, it'll be kind of processing this next chapter of my life. And I have a few films I'm working on right now. One of them is a cosmic horror film that is kind of like another coming of age story, but it's like about, you know, sex, magic, and psychedelics. So how appropriate will it be for any 13-year-old? And then the other one is a script that I got sent that's been in development for a really long time. And it's a heist movie, and I love heist movies, and it's just one of the rudest movies I've ever seen in my life, and I really hope I get to make both of those soon. But yeah, I can't stop writing. I think like this movie really like opened up the floodgates for me, and I'm catching a lot of ideas, and I'm really hard at work to hopefully make something else very soon.
Well, The People's Joker is fantastic, and
Thank you.
I'm sure whatever you make next will also be fantastic.
Thank you.
So-
Can I do some plugs?
Sure, yes.
The People's Joker is available on VOD, also Blu-ray, also regular DVD if you haven't gotten a Blu-ray player yet, but you should get a Blu-ray player. Even if you need to like go steal a Blu-ray player from Best Buy, just tell them I did. You know, you can blame me if you get caught, because I'm the Joker, the parody Joker, the People's Joker. It's also available on VHS, panned and scanned by yours truly. And our international release is imminent. I'm working it out right now. I know we're going to be playing in Australia in October, and hopefully in the UK at the end of the year or the beginning of the year. And these are all things I haven't said before, so these are exclusives.
Ooh, I appreciate that.
Hey, you know, need those clicks. I'm not a hero, and I'm not a villain either.
So who are you?
I'm a woman of my word.
I thought clowns were supposed to be funny.